Welcome to the Veganuary podcast, the podcast that helps you to try a vegan diet. It's stuffed full of hints and tips for anyone who wants to eat more plants.
Veganuary 2025 is proudly sponsored by our international sponsor at The Vegetarian Butcher. Check them out and learn more about all of our sponsors in the episode description.
Cool. Wendy, I'm going to start with my most vegan thing. I'm not sure if it's a most vegan thing or a least vegan thing, actually, for me this week. But I've been eating a lot of pot noodles. Do you know what a pot noodle is?
Is that like ramen?
Like
instant
a ramen,
noodles?
like an instant noodles. So I've been on the go a lot this week. I've been really busy. I've been traveling around and I haven't really had a lot of time to stop for some proper food. And I do love a pot noodle. So they're they're sort of iconic sort of rubbish food stuff here in the UK. And
Do you juice them up? Do you make them fancy or just eat them as is?
No, I just have them as is, really. And but the thing is, they're like meat flavors. So it's like peri chicken and barbecue steak, but they're vegan because they haven't actually got any meat or anything in. And so I suppose I think in the sense that they're a well-known, perhaps accidentally vegan food, that because I've been eating so many of them, that feels like very vegan. But in the sense that they're like trash food with like no nutritional benefit whatsoever, I'm definitely not a vegan for my health vegan this week. That's for sure.
Well, it's nice that they're there for you in busy times.
Yeah. How about you? How's your week been?
So I think the most vegan thing I did this week was I brought my own vegan mayo to a restaurant. My brother has a weekend job at this little dive bar, and I went to visit him and grab some lunch. And I knew from my last visit that they have a veggie burger on the menu, but all the other burgers have aiolis and sauces, but the vegan burger was just served dry, which wouldn't do. So I came prepared and brought a little jar of mayo in my purse. And I feel like we need a t-shirt that says vegans need condiments too.
Did you do it like surreptitiously, or were you quite open about it?
No, I just brought it right out onto the bar and grabbed a butter knife.
Any funny looks?
Yeah, it's a pretty rural area. Like a lot of people show up at this bar on snowmobile. So I would say it was their first jar of vegan mayo that's ever entered the premises.
I like the idea that people might think that you just constantly walk around like with a bag full of condiments for any occasion. Well, maybe that leads us on quite nicely. We've been asking all our guests to tell us about their dream vegan meal. So what's your dream vegan meal, I wondered? And does it involve a jar of mayonnaise stashed in your bag?
No, I assure you it does not. I'm such a foodie. I love to eat. I love to cook. I think like my favorite meal, if I'm making it at home, I feel like we talk about peanut butter too much on this podcast, but I love peanut noodles. Like a nice spicy Thai peanut noodle with some tofu is a real go-to. But as far as a meal that I've had out in the world that I dream about, my family's Czech, and I went to this restaurant in Prague last year that had a dish called cevichkova, and it's like this pureed root veggie dish. It's got celeriac and parsnips, and they serve it almost like a gravy with these bread dumplings. It's really hard to describe, but give it a Google. It is so good. And I've been trying to recreate it at home ever since, and it's just never hitting the mark.
That sounds really nice. Did you drink, when I went to Prague, I drank a lot of the dark beer. Did you drink much of that?
Oh, I had one or two, certainly.
Very nice. Do you know, well, I immediately started thinking of delicious meals I've had when I've been traveling as well. for my dream vegan meal. And a lot of this was actually before I went vegan. So when I was in my 20s, I did a little bit of traveling in Southeast Asia. And so I'm going to start a main dessert here, okay? So
I love it.
I love summer rolls. With not the deep fried ones, the ones where it's the fresh rice paper. And I had some of those in Vietnam, in Hanoi, I think, and they were just so delicious. And I think about them a lot. And similarly at the time, I ate a lot of Thai curries when I was in Thailand. I remember the very first thing I ate when I landed in Thailand. It just was like so fragrant and so fresh and so delicious. I've just never been able to quite get that same freshness and flavour. But I went to, I think it was Chiang Mai in Thailand, and I had a Panang curry, and it was just honestly the best thing I've ever eaten, I'm sure. I think it was probably chicken, so I'd now have a version with tofu, I think. And I'm having a side dish. So you and we went cycling in India together, and do you remember having gobi Manchurian?
I do.
Oh, it's like sticky balls of cauliflower in like a sort of sweet and sour sauce thing. It was so good. That was so delicious. So I'm having that as a side dish. And then mint choc chip ice cream, vegan mint choc chip ice cream for pudding.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Oh. Well, now I feel like I need to add a dessert. Yum. Well, it's still pre-lunchtime here in the US, so now I'm officially ravenous.
Sorry about that. Okay, cool. Oh, I wanted to talk about fund matching. So within Veganuary, because we are a non-profit and we are a charity, we have a special supporter, don't we?
We do. So Veganuary is so lucky to have a donor who has agreed to match every donation that we receive dollar for dollar.
Yeah, so anytime you donate, because we are a charity and we are a non-profit and we can only do the work we do, such as this podcast, because people give us donations, he matches every single donation. So everything you give is actually worth twice as much to us, which is great. It just means we can do so much more. So yeah, as Wendy says, it's a really great incentive to give. Should we move on to our interview with Richa? So, your interview with Richa, because of the time difference. Again, I couldn't jump on this one. So you spoke to Richa on your own. So I'll hand it over to you, Wendy.
Yes, so can't wait to share this interview with you. Richa was just so lovely to talk to. And of course, many of you will know Richa is an actor best known for her roles on Netflix Never Have I Ever. And she is absolutely hilarious in the 5th series of Fargo. So this season, we've been kicking off each episode with a fun question, which is, what is your dream vegan meal?
Oh, wow. My dream vegan meal is probably any vegan sushi. I just love vegan.
Yum. Do you have a favorite sushi spot?
I do. There's this place in LA. It's in Agora Hills. It's called Macon Sushi. Actually, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's either Macon or Macon Sushi. But it is my favorite place.
Yum. I think I've been there. I used to live in Echo Park, and I think I remember a really good Agora Hills sushi place. So
yeah, it's only been open, I think, for maybe 2 or 3 years, but it is the best.
Yum. So how long have you been vegan for?
It's been almost exactly 5 years.
Wow. Amazing. And what was your diet like before that? So what kind of food did you eat growing up?
Yeah, I kind of went through different phases, I guess you could say, before I became vegan. I grew up eating mostly vegetarian food, but I ate chicken and turkey. I didn't have any red meat, so I would have like white meat and seafood, but not with every meal. And it was mostly when we ate out, because most of my family is vegetarian. So at home, we would mostly have vegetarian home-cooked Indian food. And then about 10 years ago, I was living in India. And at that time, I was living in a neighborhood where, I mean, it's very different over there than it is over here. You know, the chicken shops and the meat shops are all very much in your face. They're not hidden like they are here. And you see and you smell and you hear everything. And when I was exposed to that, I became fully vegetarian. I was like, I can never eat meat again after this. But I had, at that time, no knowledge really about the dairy industry or anything like that. So I thought being vegetarian was enough for me. And then about 5 years ago, my sister actually went vegan, and she told me why. And I didn't want to hear it because I did not want to give up dairy, and I did not want to give up cheese or ice cream or any of the things. And, but she planted a seed, and that's what happens.
Yes.
Once the seed was planted, I couldn't really ignore it. And I was like, okay, I will watch one documentary and see how I feel about it. So I watched one documentary, Cowspiracy, on Netflix. And overnight, I should say my husband and I watched it together. Overnight, we became vegan and never, ever went back.
Ah, incredible. Yeah, there's always that one person in our lives who just gives us the nudge we need, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So the seed was planted. You decided it was time to move towards plant-based. What did you find challenging at first?
I think what I found challenging was just the level of ignorance and misinformation, but also intentional misinformation out there about the meat and dairy industries. And I guess what I found challenging was the fact that I hadn't been vegan my whole life. It was almost like my entire life changed after watching that documentary, and everything that I felt about the food that I eat and the lifestyle that I had. It was something shifted in me on a cellular level. So I didn't even miss having anything the day that I became vegan. I didn't even feel any sort of issues with missing having these things. So I don't know. I'm giving you a really long answer right now, but I guess that I can say that I didn't have any challenges with finding alternatives. I thought it was very easy to find alternatives. And I was actually so surprised and amazed how easy it is to, I shouldn't say it's easy to be vegan. I don't think it's necessarily easy to be vegan, but it was easy to adapt to it very quickly.
Definitely. And one thing we emphasize a lot at Veganuary is that you don't have to get it perfect right away, right?
Yeah.
It's a learning curve when you decide to make this major change in your life. And we offer a ton of support, but let people know, hey, if you accidentally, buy a bag of chips that you didn't realize had dairy in it, like just get right back on there, keep trying. And, we all make mistakes. So any slip ups along the way for you, or things that you kind of had to learn as you went?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because actually I would say, if anything, that was probably the challenge that I had, was not realizing how inundated every single industry is with animal products.
Yes.
So things that I wouldn't have even thought of, or even given any, I don't know, just things that I already had or would buy, and then later look at the ingredients and be shocked to see some very random animal ingredient in it. So of course, I made mistakes along the way, and I still do. There are still times where I'll order something that I think is vegan, or just don't even think about it at all, because I wouldn't even consider it's not vegan. And then I realize it's not vegan. And, you can't be perfect all the time, and you do the best that you can. And doing the best you can is great.
Absolutely. Okay. So you mentioned that Cowspiracy was one of the first films you watched that really opened your eyes. What's something about animal agriculture that's really shocked you?
Oh, wow. There's so many things that have shocked me. Everything from the impact it has on the environment. I think the number is something like around 14% of all greenhouse gas emissions caused by humans is through animal agriculture. And aside from the environmental impact, just the level of cruelty and suffering and things you can't even wrap your head around or imagine. Just the pain and the suffering that is experienced by, for example, when it comes to dairy, I think something I didn't know and most people don't know and don't want to know is how the mother is separated from her baby right after it's born. I shouldn't say that always happens, but it's a very common practice in the dairy industry. And I mean, I don't think any mother deserves to experience that emotional pain. And they do experience the same level of emotional pain that humans do. And that's something that I think people don't want to think about or accept.
Yeah, exactly. Don't want to think about. And a lot of times just don't know. We grow up, especially in the US, with this image of like the happy farmer milking the cow and on the sunny pasture.
Back in the day. I mean, I think things have changed a lot, and that's what we don't realize, and that's what they don't want us to know.
So what about when you're on set? Is it hard to stay vegan when you're working on set? Do you ever have to make compromises?
I never make compromises. If anything, I will bring lots of protein bars with me from home if I am afraid that I won't have anything to eat. So I always find a way to get by. That being said, it's not the easiest, I will say, because even if they do, make something vegan for me, it's often not healthy. And, or they might have like one option and maybe I don't like it. So it's not easy, but like I said, I always find a way to manage, and I'll bring food from home if I have to. And most of the time I'm able to get something to eat on set. But yeah, it's definitely something that I think the industry needs to work on, is providing not just vegan meals, but just more nutritious meals in general that includes plant-based meals.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said sometimes you'll bring something from home. Does that mean that you like to cook? Do you do a lot of cooking?
I do love to cook. I don't necessarily have time every day to cook, but I love making everything from Indian food, Italian food, Mexican food, and I love baking.
Okay, so let's say you just found out a few friends are coming over tonight. Maybe they're people who are skeptical of plant-based food. What is on the menu? What's your go-to dish?
So it depends how much time I have. If I have a lot of time, then I love to make a full Indian meal, but Indian cooking takes a lot more time. But if I am making an Indian meal, my favorite dishes to make are dal, which is lentils. There's so many different ways to make dal. And I will make another one of my favorite dishes, which is traditionally, when you get it from a restaurant, saag paneer, and paneer is cheese. So I make it with tofu. So I'll do like saag tofu. And if it's not Indian food, then I'll make delicious plant-based pasta for everyone, or a nice soup, and delicious bread.
Yum. Yeah, it's just about getting to dinner time here on the East Coast, and you're making me very hungry.
What are you having for dinner tonight?
It's a good question. I have two things in the fridge, two kinds of leftovers I need to choose between. One is a pumpkin curry.
That's
so
delicious.
it's like a Thai curry paste with pureed pumpkin and tofu and spinach. And then I have some leftover lentil shepherd's pie. It's kind of feeling like a shepherd's pie, a cozy night. Yeah, I did. I love to cook too.
Okay, you're fancier than me. Wow.
I just moved into a place with a new kitchen, so I've been spending a lot of time in there experimenting, especially now with the weather getting colder.
Yeah, it's always fun when you have a new kitchen and you get to explore all these new recipes.
It is. And, I liked to cook before I went vegan, but I cooked things that were a lot simpler, right? It was like chicken, rice, broccoli, just very basic meals. And I think it's really forced me out of my comfort zone. It's forced me to get really creative and learn about different cultures and cuisines. And I think people always, say it's a deprival, but it really feels like it's expanded what I eat tenfold.
I totally agree. I think that's something that because like you, I used to love cooking and baking even before, but after becoming vegan, just like you said, I felt like it expanded my creativity in the kitchen and finding all these new recipes and people that I follow who make incredible plant-based, whether it's baking or cooking, and using their recipes, and just seeing the level of honestly genius that goes into some of these, especially the dishes that they are making veganized versions of traditional meat dishes or dairy things with dairy, and just seeing the way that they are able to make it taste almost the same or even better, but using all plant-based ingredients. I just think it's so fascinating. It's such a science, and I have so much respect for all these amazing chefs and food bloggers out there who are just so creative and amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have any favorite cookbook authors or content creators that you are, have as your go-tos that you'd recommend to any newbies out there?
Yeah, one of my favorite cookbooks that's on my counter right now, it's Joyful, and it's by Radhi Devrukia Shetty. She's a very close friend of mine and an incredible vegan chef and Ayurvedic lifestyle, all the things. And another person that I love is Nisha Vora, who I think she's by Rainbow Plant Life. I love all her recipes.
Yes, actually, I think the shepherd's pie that I was just talking about is a Rainbow Plant Life recipe. So big fan. Oh, amazing. Thanks for the recommendations.
Of course.
So you've spoken about how the animal rights movement is connected to other social movements like feminism and anti-racism. Could you elaborate a little bit on why you think it's so important for us to make that connection?
Yeah, I think that's something that I really love to bring attention to, because it's easy to dismiss animal welfare as just a separate issue from everything else, but it is so deeply, deeply interconnected to honestly every social justice movement and issue. It all goes together. And, I firmly believe that all oppression, any form of oppression, is the same as any other form of oppression. So if you want to dismantle oppression, you have to dismantle it everywhere. And the way we treat animals is very much connected to and telling of how we treat ourselves and treat other people. And, that's on a moral level, I'm saying all these things, but also just looking at the impact, like we talked about, on the environment and on the disproportionate impact it has on communities of color. It is a social justice issue. So I think that's something that people don't necessarily realize and talk about, but it is such an important thing to include when you are talking about any form of social justice.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder if for those who are maybe new to looking at it through this lens, could you elaborate a little bit more on the ways that animal agriculture disproportionately impacts communities of color?
Yes. So a lot of the factory farms are located in areas that are predominantly occupied and lands where communities of color live. And also a lot of the workers who work in these factories who experience extreme psychological stress and PTSD, they are mostly people of color. And so that is why it is so important to realize that animal welfare is so deeply connected to human rights.
Yes, absolutely. Do you have any animals in your life right now?
Yes. And as you said that, my dog, Teddy, who is not just my dog, he's my baby, he's sleeping next to me and dreaming and barking in his sleep.
Oh, he knew we were talking about him.
I don't know if you heard that.
Amazing. Did you grow up with animals in your life? Where did your love for animals really begin?
Definitely with dogs. I've always had dogs my whole life. And we have a cat as well. I've always loved animals, and my husband even more so than I. He just knows the most random facts about animals, and if some animal shows up in a video or I don't know anywhere that I've never seen in my entire life, he will know exactly what animal it is and like at least one characteristic about it.
I love that.
Both of us are huge animal lovers. But really, my love for animals started with my dogs, and especially now after being vegan and just learning so much about animal rights. I truly, when I see any animal suffering, I see my dog. I literally see my dog's face. And that's why it's so heartbreaking for me. And when I see him, I see every animal.
Yeah. No, I resonate with that a lot. And I think a lot of our listeners probably do too. So going back to food for a minute, do you have any horror stories of eating out and being served just bad vegan food or a really bad vegan option?
Yes. I mean, I feel like when I say I'm vegan, they just assume I want to eat. First of all, I hate salad. I don't like eating salad. And so that's always like the number one thing that a restaurant will say is, oh, we have this salad and we'll just take out everything in it. So you're left with lettuce. And that is my worst nightmare.
Yeah, been there.
I don't like raw food. And I think a lot of times when I go out and I say I'm vegan, whether it's salad or something else raw, that's what they will give me. So that can be difficult sometimes, but I'll always ask if there's nothing else, like just make me a side of, I don't know, grilled vegetables or something. Hopefully they can at least do that. Something cooked.
Yes. Yeah, it's quite a learning curve if you're, going out to eat vegan, maybe new to it, and you get served a big plate of raw veggies. Yeah, it's a lot of a lot of fiber. What's your food vice? What's a super indulgent treat that you love?
Well, I have a major sweet tooth and an addiction, I should say, truly an addiction to freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. I have to limit how many times I bake them I like to say per month, but really per week.
Yeah, love a good chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah, and obviously vegan.
Of course.
There's some really amazing vegan chocolate chip cookie recipes out there that are even better than when I used to make them before I was vegan.
Do you have kind of a go-to, or do you mix it up?
There's one, I think it's on the website Tasty. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I think it's a BuzzFeed page,
yeah,
Tasty.
I don't really know what it is, to be honest. I just know that one time I found, I think the title that it says is literally like best chocolate chip cookie in the world, and it's vegan. I could be saying this wrong, but that's where I found it, and I printed it out, so I have it, and it's not going anywhere from my kitchen. I just make that recipe every time.
That's funny. My go-to pancake recipe is also from Tasty, and it's also called like the best vegan pancakes. So they've got that search engine optimization down, but they're great recipes.
Yeah, they are.
So what advice would you give to someone who's giving vegan a try for the first time for Veganuary?
Well, we talked about this before. I think that one thing that's so helpful to know and to remind yourself is that you don't have to get it down perfectly ever, whether it's at first or ever. Genuinely, I mean, if you're trying your best, like we talked about, that's really the best that you can do. And it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to not get it right every single time. And I think that one thing that a lot of people that I hear when we talk about plant-based diets and vegan food is, oh, well, I have some whatever it is, I have some certain issue that because of that I can't only have plant-based food, which is totally understandable. Everybody is different. Every body is different. And so what I like to tell them is that's totally fine. You have to do what works for you. There are also other ways to lead a more compassionate lifestyle, and that includes looking at your skincare, at your makeup, at the clothes that you wear, experiences when you travel, and just making sure that you are as much as possible, looking at the ingredients and looking at what's entailed and making sure that there is no animal cruelty involved.
When you first went vegan, did you kind of start with food and then sort of transition towards making sure all the other aspects in your life were cruelty-free and plant-based, or were you kind of a everything overnight person? How did that go for you?
I think it was definitely food overnight. And then very quickly, I kind of became obsessed in the first week that I went vegan, and I just started following all these vegan influencers and watching all these video clips and traumatizing myself. I don't watch those things anymore because I just can't handle the level of trauma anymore. But I did need to educate myself at that time. And I think I learned very quickly that it's not just the food that we eat. So I think it was pretty quick, probably within a couple of weeks. I started going through all the things that I already had. I didn't throw things out necessarily that I already have, because that's wasteful. If anything, I would finish that and then just not buy it again. And then moving forward, just being very careful about the things that I do buy.
Yeah, it's like once your eyes are open, it's hard not to see, where you can make changes everywhere you look.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's how I felt. I genuinely felt like, oh my God, my eyes have been opened without really even trying. Like, just watching one documentary opened my eyes, and I, like you said, I couldn't unsee it after that, and I began to see cruelty. I mean, it's really sad to say, but I started to see cruelty everywhere around me, which I still do, and it's honestly very difficult to cope with sometimes, and to just especially because there are so few of us who are fighting against it. And it's very isolating. And that's something I guess I didn't talk about earlier when you asked what was challenging. But that is probably something that's really challenging, is how isolating it is, and how gaslit I often feel caring about this and feeling the way that I feel about it, when so many people just don't care and they don't want to know. And, I don't judge people. I don't want to shame people, because, I myself haven't always been vegan, and I myself didn't always want to know. And I guess I don't know what it's going to take, but I definitely think these conversations are important, and they need to be normalized, and not only had between vegans. I think that we need to start having these conversations with everyone around us in a way that is open and compassionate and judgment-free.
That social aspect gets brought up a lot as a challenge for people, just how to, approach family dinners and holidays and things like that. I'm just curious, you said earlier that your sister was the one who inspired you. What's it like with your family now? Do you have a lot of other plant-based folks, or is it everyone doing their own thing?
It's funny, when it comes to family, I'm the opposite of everything I just said. I'm extremely shaming and judgmental. I get mad at my parents all the time. But at the end of the day, you love your family. I love my family, and I accept them for who they are. And I try to pick my battles with them. But it does help that both my husband and my sister are vegan. So whenever we do have, Thanksgiving or family dinners, and we're all home, anyways, my parents are vegetarian, so they'll just make sure that everything is vegan for us, at least. So that's not too difficult, but I'm just trying to get them to go from vegetarian to vegan.
Yeah. Fighting the good fight. One challenge that Veganuary participants bring to us is that shopping for the first time for plant-based foods can be a little tricky. They're not quite sure what to look for. So when you walk into a grocery store, what are some of your go-to plant-based brands?
Oh, good question. Well, when it comes to plant-based milks, I actually recently started having soy milk. I think soy milk has had kind of a bad reputation. For soy in general has had a bad reputation, but I work very closely with a holistic gut coach and a functional medicine doctor who are very, very smart and know a lot about the human gut and what is good for it and what is not. And they have completely debunked the whole bad reputation that soy has. And I actually am all for soy now. And I love tofu. I love soy milk. My favorite soy milk brand is probably the Silk organic soy milk. And for tofu, I don't really know the brands, but I do love, it's not tofu, but it just reminded me, I love Tofutti cream cheese. It is the best vegan cream cheese, and Kite Hill is also great.
You mentioned, working with some nutritionists and a gut health coach. Have you noticed any marked changes to how you feel or in your overall wellness since you've moved to a plant-based diet?
Yeah, I definitely, when I go out to eat And even when I cook at home, after eating vegan meals, I definitely feel less heavy than I used to feel. I feel just more vibrant and healthy. And even just, I really believe there's such a strong connection between the mind and the gut. And feeling good about what you're eating and knowing that you're not, or at least you're trying to reduce your impact on people, animals, and the planet, you feel better about what you're eating. And then when you feel good about what you're eating, your body actually digests it better. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah, far fewer food comas in my life since I've been vegan.
Exactly.
What would you say to someone who says it's too expensive to eat vegan or to buy vegan products and it's only something, the Hollywood elite can afford? What would your response be?
I would say that I totally get that. And I understand where that thinking comes from, because it can be really expensive to buy certain vegan products and vegan brands, especially. But what I've noticed is that's really more when it comes to the more processed things, like processed vegan meat, other things that are made to taste like animal products. And I try to stay away from those anyways, because they're not really healthy for you. I mean, I still think it's better than eating meat, but for me, when it comes to the way that I eat, I try, not always, I'm not perfect, but I try to consume whole foods that are plant-based. So, whether it's dried beans, which is actually one of the healthy beans, and legumes and lentils are some of the healthiest forms of protein that you can consume. You buy them in bulk, dried beans, dried lentils, or even canned. They're actually cheapest, especially if they're organic. They're the cheapest and healthiest forms of protein that you can consume. And one tiny bag of dried beans, you'd be surprised how long it will last you. And so I firmly believe that it is absolutely affordable for anyone to adopt a plant-based diet, because, like I said, there are so many ways to buy healthy foods in their whole forms that are very, very cost friendly.
Yeah, I think that's really fantastic advice. And, utilizing things like farmers markets and just finding more of that local produce and buying in bulk can be really cost effective.
Yeah. And I also, the other thing is that if you're going to buy meat, hopefully you are buying organic and antibiotic free and all those things. And that's actually more expensive than most of the plant-based proteins out there.
Awesome. So where can people follow you, and any projects that you want to point our listeners to right now?
Oh, that's a sweet question. Well, you can follow me on Instagram. It is the only social media platform that I use. I have completely stopped using whatever it's called, X. And I have never been on TikTok. So Instagram.
Perfect. Oh, Richa, thank you so much. This has been lovely. It's been so nice to have you.
Thank you so much. And I'm so grateful for the work that you guys do. I think you guys make it so accessible and fun and inviting, even for people who don't necessarily want to go completely vegan. So thank you for what you guys do.
Absolutely. Oh, that means the world.
All right, Wendy, that was a great interview with Richa. That's made me, I don't think I've watched anything that she's in, but it's made me want to go and check it out. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing tonight, probably. I've got a quiz for you. 5 questions, true or false. Are you ready?
I can't tell if I'm getting better or worse at these two, but yeah, I'm ready.
I feel like I'm setting you up to fail in a lot of these questions. It's a bit tricky. Anyway, true or false, the world's oldest chicken, Muffy, lived until she was 23 and a half.
That's really old for a chicken, but I'm going to say true.
It's true. The world's oldest living land animal is a crocodile named Frank.
False.
It's false. He's actually a tortoise named Jonathan. The longest recorded flight of a chicken was 13 seconds.
True.
It's true. Well done. The largest litter of piglets ever recorded was 24.
True.
It's false. It was actually 41.
Wow.
I know. That poor sow. Cows are colourblind.
False.
It's true. Can't tell the difference between red or green. So there we go. That just about wraps us up for this episode. So why don't you tell everyone how they can contact us?
Sure. So you can write Stu and I at podcast@veganuary.com. And don't be shy. We love to hear from listeners. And particularly, we would love to hear your stories of your most and least vegan moments of the week. And of course, you can follow us and find us on Instagram, TikTok, all of the big social channels.
And what if people want to do the Veganuary thing and take part by getting 31 days of emails of support?
It's super, super easy to take part. You just visit veganuary.com and you'll see a big pink button on the right-hand corner where you can opt in to receive our 31 days of coaching emails. You'll get a lovely email from Stu every day with recipes and tips, meal plans, all kinds of fun freebies. And all we ask from you is your name, country, and email address.
That's it. So this podcast was recorded at Distorted Podcast Studios and produced by Jim Moore at Bloody Vegan Productions. If you enjoyed it, please do subscribe and rate us 5 stars. Thanks for listening.
1